Hello, Facebook. That's how Mike Phillips does it. How's everyone doing today? Thanks for joining us. And looks like we've got some people already on this broadcast. So I want to see if you guys can hear me. Can anyone hear me? This is the first time I'm using this software, so I don't know if you're able to hear me or not. So if you can go ahead and put that down in the comments. First thing I'm going to let everyone know is this is recorded live. So we are recording this live. So if you watch this later for training or something of that nature, this was recorded live. You may hear me answering questions. I can't answer those questions once this is no longer live. Perfect. You guys can hear me. So it looks like you can see my screen here. I'm going to go ahead and jump in real quick to the blasting part. This video is going to be a little long because we have to wait for it to send the text messages and then wait for people to reply. This will probably be a 30 or 40-minute video. Feel free to come back if you can't stay and watch. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to click up in the top left. I'm going to go ahead and get this started, and then I'll come back and talk a little bit more. So in the top left, there's a little blast icon. You're going to click that. You're going to click Add Blast. You can schedule the blast for a certain date and time. You can send up to 500 text messages. You can order them from oldest to newest leads first. You can hit leads that have not sent or received a text message in a certain number of days. And you can type your message that you want to send to the customer. The message should always just be a short, engaging question, a yes or no question, so that you can get a yes or no out of the customer. That's primarily what you're trying to do with that message. Are you still looking for a vehicle is a good one. Just because you're getting a direct answer for them. They're either going to say, yes, I am, or no, I'm not. And then you could take a course of action based on that. But you can do things like, are you looking to sell your vehicle? Do you want to trade your vehicle? You can even get a little tricky and say, is this your cell phone or something like that, just to drive some engagement from the leads. But I'm going to go ahead and hit a couple of these categories here. I'm going to hit the contact, the active stale or active fresh. I'm going to hit our canceled appointments. I'm also going to hit our missed appointments and our stale appointments. And I'm going to go ahead and create that blast. Just wanted to get that started. It takes about 5 to 10 minutes for it to actually start sending. There's a couple things I wanted to talk about in the meantime, but CRM task. So I've been a high lead volume salesperson the majority of my life, handled a very high volume of leads. I've used just about every CRM in the book. The ones in automotive are probably the worst CRMs. Outside of automotive, I've used all kinds of CRMs, and they just became overwhelming. So I don't know if you guys want to comment or not, but who's tired of clicking buttons in the CRM? Who's tired of having to create task after task after task? That's really why I created TECOBI, and the thought process behind the way we use the system is we just got tired of wasting time inside of the CRM. And you make phone calls and you don't get anyone on the phone. So if you think about your leads, for example, the dealership receives X number of leads. Let's say it's 1,000 leads that you receive per month. You're getting a hold of anywhere from 90 to, you're getting a hold of anywhere from 10 to 20% of those leads. That means 80 to 90% of those leads need some long-term follow-up. Once you start getting a ton of these leads in your pipeline, it becomes very difficult to follow up with the leads the proper way. That's why dealerships have BDCs, and some of them have very large BDCs, because it takes a lot of work to make phone calls and send emails through a traditional CRM to follow up with those leads. Most of the follow-up is typically just a really simple, quick question, just to find out if they're in the market for a vehicle. So you're basically following up via phone call, trying to get someone on the phone, figure out if now's a better time for them to talk about a car. You end up with thousands and thousands of these leads that you're trying to follow up with. It can become a lot of work. And even in the current CRMs, there's a flaw with being able to utilize text message the proper way. So even if you're texting them in the CRM, it's still a lot of clicking and a lot of tasks that you have to do. So I didn't like that as a salesperson, and I built TECOBI when I started texting people with the thought process of, hey, I can automate a lot of the work that I'm doing currently, and I can become more efficient at getting things done. So let's say you got 80% of those that need follow-up. You get into month 2, month 3, you're thousands and thousands of leads that need follow-up. And most dealerships rely heavily on making phone calls. I mean, most desk managers have a certain number of phone calls that their salespeople or BDC people need to make. I've never been an advocate of not making phone calls. So let me be very clear that I believe in phone calls. The reason you want to make phone calls is because you can't get tone of voice. You can't hear if the person's buying what you're selling them, whether it's an appointment or whatever it is, when you're over text message. And if you end up with too many active text message conversations, it becomes overwhelming, and text message conversations can drag on a lot longer than just picking up the phone and setting an appointment in 3 to 4 minutes. So phone calls, just because I provide a texting platform, I'm not saying to eliminate the phone calls. What I'm saying is use text message to make more efficient phone calls. And as these text messages start going, we'll see if they haven't started yet. But once they start sending out once this text blast starts, you're going to see some of these responses come in, and then I'm going to show you how to fill those responses, to how to start building your pipeline of text follow-up so that you don't have to do it manually. So we just still got to wait here. I don't know if anyone has any questions why we wait, but want to talk to more people. That's my little bullet point up there. That's the goal here, is we're trying to get you actually talking to more people, instead of just making needless calls on voicemail and getting hung up on, or whatever the case may be, but actually talking to people that want to talk about buying a car right now. Phone calls are needed. So we're just going to, okay, so now you can see the text messages are starting to go out. When I was talking about, for a salesperson, this is good as baby Jesus. So basically this is me, and I have the names blocked out for privacy reasons. You can't see the customer's name, but this would basically be me going through the CRM or picking up a phone, trying to follow up with this particular customer just to see if they're looking for a vehicle. So these text messages are starting to go out, and you can see that it's just pushing them. So here's a no. This is an example of a no. So this is a lead that came in, looks about 3 days ago. No does not mean that they don't want a car. It just means they may not be in a place to get it right now. So this is what happens with advertising. We get someone who has a little bit of curiosity in a vehicle. Maybe they're further up the funnel, and this can happen across all advertising sources. It's not just Facebook leads. It can happen across any kind of advertising source where you get someone that's further up the funnel. They're a little scared to talk to a salesperson. So basically what I'm going to do to keep moving forward with this customer, and let me turn off this agenda highlight. So I'm going to turn off this agenda highlight here, so you can kind of see, is I'm going to hit this pause button, and it's going to bring up a map. And all I'm going to do is pause this probably till the middle of next month. Just because I know that person's somewhere in the funnel. They may be a little afraid to talk to someone right now, and I want to hit them. You can pause this for any amount of time. I usually do a month or 2 just to give this person some time to cool off. You could also make a phone call to this person and try and flip them if you're a little slow. I'm not making phone calls for this dealer today, but I'm just going to pause this lead for a month. That way they don't get forgotten about, and then when we're doing another one of these blasts, it hits them, and you might catch them at the right time. It's about hitting the right person with the right message at the right time. That's what we're trying to do. And if we give this a little time, it's still sending. We're going to start seeing some yeses and some other responses pop into this list. But basically what this is doing is being a workhorse, doing my follow-up on all those stale leads that have just gotten stale, and I'd be getting my head pounded in trying to make 40 phone calls, or 50 or 100 or whatever number of phone calls that your dealership requires you to make. I just, with a click of a button. So here's another no. This lead came in on 7/4. So we finally got a response out of this particular lead. I'm I'm actually going to just ask them, did you purchase one yet? See if I can't get another response. Just in case they don't respond, I'm going to pause this lead. I don't want to hit them with another blast for, I don't know, let's hit them probably beginning of the month. So just in case they don't respond, we want to make sure that's paused. That way they're not getting hit by the blasts that are going out. But this is a yes. So this is what we're looking for. This is a lead that we'll go over from the beginning. Came in at the beginning of the month. First text message went out. They never, sales should have called at this point in time. Apparently they did not call at this point in time. And then we finally got a yes. And at this point is where we would want the dealership to, at sales at BDC, can you call this customer? They are looking for a vehicle. So this is at where we're going to tag in your BDC. And at that point, we want them to make a phone call, but we don't want to let the customer hang. So what I'm going to do is ask them, what type of vehicle are you looking for? And this is where we struggle. We get these customers that we're engaging via text and we tag in the dealership to make a phone call. We need a phone call made on that immediately. It is highly important that we make a phone call on that as soon as possible, because now we've got an engaged customer. But instead, a lot of our dealerships, what's going on is they've got these old tasks that they're forcing their people to do inside of the CRM that this customer that we now have engaged isn't getting a phone call in a timely manner. I don't know if it gets any better than a lead that says, are you still looking for a vehicle? Yes. That's a perfect person to pick up the phone and try and call. So I'm just going to keep working through some of these leads. There's another yes. So you can just see that here is another yes lead. This is almost a 1 month old lead that came in and just kind of got dropped. I mean, there's just a lot of situations where leads come in and get dropped, and then they get put in these, I am, here's a yes, not at the moment, maybe, but my son was just injured, so I'm out of town. So this is a good thing here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to set a pause. Son's out of town. I'm just going to go ahead and pause this till next week. And is your son back in town yet? Just in case she doesn't reply, I want to hit her next week with that. But I'm going to ask her right now. No problem. When does your son return? I'm going to go ahead and ask her, when does your son return? But I want to pause it just in case she doesn't reply. I don't want that text message going out until next week. Once the lead is paused, if the customer replies, it unpauses it, and then you can set that pause message based on her reply. And this just keeps you going forward. That's the goal of what our system is trying to do, is to keep you going forward. So when you pause send a pause text message, you're pausing it, and that text message goes out at a later date. Then our artificial intelligence will try and engage them if they don't reply to it. Instead of having to remember to come back and do everything, you're trying to just keep going forward to the next engaged customer. I got one, thank you. This is an awesome opportunity to follow up with a customer of another dealership. So I'm just going to say, awesome. What did you end up getting? And then that customer might reply and say, hey, they ended up getting a Ford truck. And then I would set a pause text message to go out in a year or maybe even 6 months just to see if they have any questions on their Ford truck. The other dealership is likely not going to follow up with that customer. Why not start building a relationship with that customer now? They're going to think you're a superhero for remembering to ask if everything's okay with a vehicle that they bought somewhere else. If you keep that relationship going with that customer, when they eventually come buy a car again, it's going to be from you. So those pause messages can be used for someone who just bought a car to someone who's at work right now, and you set those pause messages. But this is really the magic that I'm trying to show you, is we're now starting to get an idea of where these people are, and we can start to, tomorrow is my last payment on my lease. That is probably about the best lead you can get. So I'm going to, at sales at BDC, please call immediately. I'm going to tell them last payment on lease is tomorrow. So that's definitely someone that we need to, that would sometimes have fallen through the cracks. I mean, it's been probably a week since this customer's been reached out to. This is the kind of stuff that's falling through the cracks that we can't keep up with because the current CRM process is so cumbersome that you can't hire enough people to keep up with this. And that's really what our system does. I mean, is it helps you start to keep up with your leads in a much more efficient manner. And this is how I was able to go into a client and set 28 appointments by myself. So I walked into the client and was able to go in and work some older leads and had some fresh leads coming in and was able to set 28 appointments in one day by myself. I'm not saying I'm an appointment superhero. What I'm saying is when you use a system like this, you can start to build your pop. There's a Spanish one. And by the way, our system does translate to Spanish. This is pretty cool. What are you looking for? It'll translate outbound text messages for you to any language. But that's the idea behind the system, is that one person can handle a much higher lead volume because they're not doing those repetitive tasks that take forever to do inside of the CRM. You're basically moving forward. Like I can sit inside of a dealership and not scroll past right here. I'm just constantly working the top of this list for the people that are engaged, making phone calls out to them, trying to get them on the phone. If they don't answer the phone, then what I'll do is roll back to text and start engaging them via text. Here's an example of where I'd rather make a phone call than text someone. If the person says I'm at work until 5 p.m., I would rather set a pause text message to go out at 5 p.m. and see if, Scarlett just walked in, and see if they're ready to talk now. Because if you keep going over text message with that conversation, it's going to take you forever to get that appointment. If you could just wait until 5 p.m. and get a phone call to them at 5, you'll be able to set that appointment in 2 or 3 minutes instead of tons of back and forth via text message. But these messages, I only sent 500 of them. He's going to have me send another 500. It's going to definitely light them up. They'll keep coming in for a couple hours. Not going to torture you guys and keep you on here for a couple hours. But I think you kind of understand, especially with that lease customer, what the follow-up process is with these leads and how you need to build out your pipeline and how that can help one person handle a much higher lead volume. Now, I've traveled around to all the dealerships. I've seen all the setups. I've seen BDC. I've seen internet, cradle to grave. I've seen every setup there is. Knowing what TECOBI can do and how effective someone can be at utilizing the software, what I would say is the best setup would be one solid phone salesperson can handle a really large ad spend or volume of leads. And you get someone that's really solid on the phone. You only need 1 or 2 just because of the hours and the shifts, and stay focused, texting and making phone calls to engage customers. That $3,500 budget. He might have something on a lot. Looks like he wanted. So this would actually be a great pause message. So I'd actually pause here. So I'm going to set a pause here, and we're going to set this for. Actually, we need to know if they got it here, because this is a Hyundai store. They may have purchased it at the dealership. So you can actually see Scarlett in here typing. That's one of the cool features of our system, so we don't type over each other. But that's how the ninjas help, and that's kind of, the concept behind the system is stop wasting all your time doing follow-up and stay talking to engaged customers. As you build out those pause messages, the appointments, the sold units, when you're doing your blasting, it's not hitting those leads. It's hitting all that stuff that just never really forms to anything and usually gets lost in the mix. But I actually have a special guest today, so that's kind of the magic. But I have a special guest again. But I have a special guest with me. We have Mike Phillips, and I'm going to add him into the broadcast real quick.
Hello, everyone. Hey, right, that's my move. Am I live now?
You're live now. Let me set up this camera. There we go. What's up, Mike?
How are you?
I'm pretty good. Did you hear my spiel there? Or?
I heard most of the spiel. I'm live in the BDC, so I listened to most of it as you're going and so forth. So
okay, so you've been using us for quite some time. You have a pretty healthy pipeline with us.
Uh-huh.
I think you probably got 6,000 or 7,000 total leads in our system right now. I was at a dealership, I think it was earlier this week or last week, and I needed to show them how the blasting worked. And I hit your leads, and it was a really good response from that, wasn't it?
Yeah. No, while you were out there, yes, is the short answer. I think you hit 400 or 500 leads, and within that time frame, we within the first hour, I think, had a dozen contacts off of it. And it was mid-afternoon. It wasn't like it was ideal time or anything. Mid-afternoon, all of a sudden, we've got a dozen responses almost immediately.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome. And
can I say something here? Because I would agree with you. We're using the product live. Here's one of the things that I would wholeheartedly agree with. One of the things that people miss is it's like, okay, it's one thing to text somebody and start to have some communication with them. But as soon as you text them, the minute you get a response back, if it's anything other than, hey, call me later, or yeah, I'll be able to talk at a later time or something like that, you know that they're taking the time to respond. They have their phone in their hand, right? So the click to call thing, that's one of the things where even, in our store, you've been in a store and trying to get BDRs acclimated to that because somebody communicates via text, then we by default start to try and text them back and forth. And really you got to break that, and you said it earlier, you got to break that it's like, look, if they're texting you, your first default response should be to call, and I mean, because their phone's in their hand. It's simple.
Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest struggles with building TECOBI, especially early on, was handling the large volume of active conversations.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's a lot of active conversations within these accounts. So a lot of what we built actually stemmed from me trying to find a profitable way of doing what we were doing without needing a large number of people. I mean, we wouldn't have been able to sell the product for what we sell it for without some of the automation and some of the processes we have in there. But I mean, you are you're pretty detailed with tracking where your sales come from. I mean, pretty much every month you're sending me a report of what you sold.
Correct.
Usually it's the other way around, and we have to send it to the dealer. But you send me a report, and I think the last one you sent me was a few months back. It was, what, about 20 cars that you were at, if I'm not mistaken?
Yeah, we've averaged very consistently. We've averaged 19. Last month we did 22 on your platform, and we track that a couple or three different ways. We do, certainly we rely on what is put into the CRM, but what's put into the CRM is, human input. We rely on certainly your system and your team assisting us in tracking a portion. But we have an individual and myself, we actually go through and will call all of our sold customers, and we just ask the question, look, where did you see us? What made you decide to make first contact? And there is a fair amount of those people that say, well, I had seen you on Facebook, I reached out on Facebook Messenger, which, well, I think I've told you the story before. One of our very first customers, and it stuck with me, that we got on your platform about right out a year ago when we were calling him. He goes, well, I'd seen this truck come up on Facebook. It kept coming up on my Facebook, and then I was driving by, and there it was. So I turned around. He literally flipped a U-turn and came in and bought the thing. Well, you're not going to track that in a traditional sense if you don't have the conversation with the customer.
Yeah, I think the trackable sales, we've pretty much proven that if a dealer wants to be properly in the process, that it's going to result in car deals. It's pretty interesting because you're the first person I've got a DMS file on,
mm-hmm.
And we're going to work on offline conversion reports on that DMS file,
right?
Just to give you some insight of how frequently we're showing ads to customers that have purchased vehicles from you. So it's going to be interesting to see that data. Plus, it's going to be interesting to actually start building a follow-up process for your sold customers via text, because we can automate. I mean, text message is just beautiful because you can automate so much with it, and not rely on staff to do certain things.
Right.
But I just wanted you to get on here. So, I mean, you were one of the first text blasts And you've used it enough now. So what's your overall thoughts of that? I mean, is it changing a little bit about the way you look at lead follow-up?
You know me. That's a trick bag question, man. You know, I am still definitely old school and very much process driven on lead follow-up. There is an evolution that's coming, and I do think that, you know, we do a text blast out of that system right about once a week. And so the nice thing is you can pick and choose, and you can target the right customers, the people that haven't been touched in some time. And you said earlier, you can manage that effectively with one or two people, you know, on and off shift and so forth. You know, it's going to take a long time for me to change my view of follow-up, because I'm still very much, I am a fan of CRM process to a point. But I also see the value in what it is that you're offering. The advantage is in your system, it's simple. It's easy. There's not, you take a lot of the thought out of it, and when you can remove the thought from it, it creates a certain level of efficiency. And what I mean by that is, it's like, okay, so I send 500 texts. In a traditional CRM, you're sending 500 texts, and then you're having to go in and linearly follow up and check on those 500 texts. In your system, it becomes non-linear, meaning I'll send the 500 texts, and the people that respond, they go up to the top, right? So that's one of the advantages. Is it's just simple stuff.
I think you hit it out of the park with linearly and non-linearly. I've been thinking about that a lot lately, just trying to explain better what it is that we do. But I think that's going to be the biggest struggle for most people who have worked in older CRM processes, is coming from understanding it's not a linear process. It's just different. But I appreciate you coming on, Mike. Let me go ahead and wrap this up.
Absolutely. Thanks, Jason. I appreciate it, man.
Have a great day.
You too, bud.
All right. So anyone that's watching this, if you're a customer and you watch this and you need some more information on how you should be pausing, how you send the blasting, how frequently you should send the blasting, reach out to me or someone on our team, your performance manager in your messenger groups. If you're a potential customer and you'd like a demo, I'll let you know this will work for any kind of lead. It's not just Facebook leads. It'll work for any type of lead that you're currently working. It is not just auto specific. It can be used for other industries. We do have people in other industries using it. And the best way to reach out to us is to just text info to 720-400-7263. Just text the word info to that phone number. That way you're in our system and one of our sales guys can follow up and get a demo. They can show you all the other features. Obviously, I didn't go through all the software. I just really wanted to show you the magic, and I'm going to go ahead and put this back on the broadcast just to go ahead and show you that we still got some more yeses coming in here. I'm ready to buy. Like, I don't think it gets much better than I'm ready to buy. Like, that's a phone call, definitely a phone call. And that's what we're looking for. I mean, just right now, think about it this way. How many phone calls would you have had to make, and how long would you have had to spend in your CRM to get that many people to say, yes, I want to talk about buying a car right now? How many leads would you have had to go through? That is what our system is built to do. That is how it's going to help you sell more cars or widgets or whatever it is that you're selling. Text us if you need a demo. As always, hit me up on Facebook. And once again, to all my friends and supporters, share, comment, like, share this especially so that we can get this message out there, because a lot of salespeople are killing themselves doing things that they don't have to spend so much time doing. So it's important for them to see that there's a different way to do it. But I really appreciate everyone. Peace. Make it a great day.